The May 24th, 2016 meeting of the Human Services Committee will now come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mrs. Brown? Here. Dr. Carbone? Here. Mrs. Conley? Here. Mrs. Draw? Here. Ms. Harris is excused. Mr. Hebert? Here. Ms. Cayley? Here. Mr. Lightfoot? Here. Chairwoman Taylor?
Here. Is there anyone signed up for the public forum?
There is not.
Is there anyone present who is not signed up to speak, who would like to address the committee at this time? Being none, we'll move to the approval of the minutes. That's the next item on the agenda. You have the April 26th, 2016 minutes before you. They will stand approved unless the clerk is notified of any changes by the end of the day. We have a presentation by Rochelle Bell, Senior Environmental Planner of the Planning and Development Department. She will give a brief overall of the 2017 to the 2022 Capital Improvement Program as it pertains to the Human Services Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You all should have received a copy of the County Executive's 2017-2022 CIP. It has been reviewed and approved by the Monroe County Planning Board, and they conducted a public information meeting as part of their review. I'd like to remind the Legislature that there are no funding approvals associated with taking this action on this referral. In June, you'll set a public hearing for July, and then hopefully you'll vote to approve the plan. There are two sections of the CIP that are pertinent to this committee. The medical examiner on page 10, their program continues to manage their equipment purchases so as to stay as up to date as possible while minding fiscal constraints. The Monroe Community Hospital has no change in the projects in their program, although scheduling for funding was revised. I'll be happy to take questions when you get to this item on your agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. New business. The next item on the agenda is new business. Madam Clerk.
Referral 16-0165.
Move it. Second.
Moved by Legislator Brown, seconded by Legislator Conley. Is there any discussion? Legislator Cayley?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly through you to the administration, I'm familiar with the grant, familiar with the program, but could I get an explanation without being too indelicate of what personal supplies mean?
Through the chair, this is Mike Sayers from the Department of Public Health. And as personal supplies are a small kit.
Okay.
This size, and inside there, we call it our starter kit for our volunteers. It has emergency food, water, N95, mask, nitrile gloves, radio, flashlight, batteries. And we encourage our volunteers by getting the starter kit to establish a larger kit for their family for up to 3 days, as we do with all of our county workers, so they can be more prepared to come in and help out our community in a time of an emergency.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Is there any other discussion? I think we're on the C.
Yeah. It's okay. I'm prepared.
Okay. Okay, so the next one. Is there any further discussion on the capital improvement program? Being none, we'll go to the, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The item carries. The next item on the agenda,
Referral 16-0169.
moved by legislator Conley, seconded by legislator Draw. Excuse me. Any discussion on that item? Being no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. Next item,
Referral 16-0170.
moved by legislator Draw, seconded by legislator Hebert. Is there any discussion on that? Legislator Lightfoot?
Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, to the administration, I had some questions in learning and trying to understand some of the particulars of the duties in this grant. We're accepting this grant for over $2 million, and the AFL-CIO will be working in conjunction with the county employees. It says here, and correct me if I'm wrong, feel free to do so, that the AFL-CIO will be, I guess, more like a contractor and kind of take the initial application. And I'm just trying to put in my mind, is this, one of the questions that came to my mind, is this like an off-site location from, I'm assuming that people apply for subsidies at the social service office, and I would like to ask some more along that once I hear back from that. Through you, Madam Chair.
Through the chair, Nancy Forge from the Department of Human Services. Actually, for general income-eligible daycare, there's no requirement to appear in person at the local social services office. So as not to disadvantage the working family, we can accomplish most of the work over the phone or through the mail. The WDI office does require that folks are screened for this extra pot of funding and that they appear in their office.
Okay, I don't know what WDI stands for, but it's okay at this time. So the AFL-CIO will be take screening calls, ma'am. Through you, Madam Chair. I'm just trying to visualize.
Through the chair, yes. To clarify, WDI stands for Workforce Development Institute, and they are the
Okay.
AFL-CIO entity managing the grant
Got it.
locally.
Yeah. Yeah. So there'll be screening calls, and then those calls. So what, I guess through you, Madam Chair, what makes us, why are we required to work with it seems like it's an extra step, I guess. That's what it seems to me.
Through the chair, this funding was a special legislative allocation at the state level, and that determination was made at the state legislature.
Oh, so we're doing what we told. Okay, I understand. I don't have any further questions. Thank you very much.
Any other? Legislator Conley?
Administration, is the 275% of, is that 275% of the income standards, is that gross or net?
Through the chair, it's a gross income standard.
And through the chair, what is the actual subsidy that the families would receive if they qualify for the subsidy? Is it a percentage of the cost, or is it a capped at a dollar amount?
Through the chair, it's a formula-based. The difference between the family's gross monthly income and for that subsidy band and the eligibility level, it's a fairly complicated or complex formula, and I'm happy to get that to the legislature.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Legislator Lightfoot?
One final question. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, through you to the administration, in this main paragraph here, it does tells us the demonstration program seeks to make the process. So the demonstration program comes to my mind, I think of a pilot program, it being like the first program. But then I also read later in the last sentence of this particular paragraph that it is the 12th year that we received the funding. So is this process that we're using with the AFL-CIO and whatever the case may be, is this the first time we're ever doing this, or is it new to us, or what? Through you, Madam Chair.
Through the chair, I believe this is the third year that the AFL-CIO Workforce Development Institute has been the grantee for the facilitated enrollment funding of the 12 years of the program.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Being none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Item carries. The next item?
Referral 16-0171.
Moved by Legislator Carbone, seconded by Legislator Heber. Is there any discussion on that item? Legislator Kaylee? Go ahead.
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the administration. Clearly, there's a difference in the addition on here, and there's about $23,000 that's not accounted for. Could you tell me what that's being used for?
Through the chair, the $23,000 is the dollar amount that's going to be staying within the County Veteran Service Agency, and the $162,000 is the amount that's going to be contracted to Compeer.
And then through the chair, what is the $23,000?
Legislator, would you lift your mic up?
Oh, sorry, it fell down.
Okay.
Tends to fall down. Thank you, Madam Chair. Then again, let me just say, ask, of the $23,000 that is staying through the chair, what is that being used for?
Through the chair, it's going to go to a variety of different sources. So one of the things that we're going to be working on in the upcoming year is a program that we're partnering with Lifespan on called Veterans Driving Veterans. And so some of the funding that we have will be supporting that program. It will also be used to support some of our special events that will be used as client enrichment events. So we may hold like Christmas party for all of the veterans that are enrolled in the program, because the point of the program is peer support. That's just an example. There will also be some funding used for outreach products and materials, some advertising and other types of outreach, and then also some office supplies and training for staff.
Thank you. And then through the administration, again, just finally, it reads to develop and implement and evaluate veteran peer-to-peer support programs. And it's the second year. So will there be programs that will continue on as a result of the first year of funding, and you will move into perhaps additional programming, or what? Thank you.
Through the chair, yes. So we have peer-to-peer matches, essentially. So that would be veterans matched in a one-on-one relationship, and those matches will continue into the next year. We also have several support groups established, and those will also continue. We're developing additional programs that will include things like some online support groups and peer mentoring groups. Hopefully some groups that will include veterans and their dogs, and several other new things like the Vets Driving Vets program that I mentioned. So we'll just continue to expand.
Thank you. And then that just brought up one last question. Are you soliciting, since this is new, are you soliciting feedback, or do you regularly get feedback from the participants in the programs?
Through the chair, yes. We have an engagement coordinator who touches base with each of the matched veterans once a month and checks in and finds out what kinds of activities they've done together and how well the match is going. And then we also have just kind of a regular feedback loop coming from our veterans groups that meet, such as our male vet group, our female group, and our LGBTQ group.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Any other discussion? Legislator Heber?
Madam Chair, through you to the administration, could you just give me a little bit more of an example of what you mean when it talks about peer-to-peer in the referral? And could you just give me a little bit more details on who is considered a peer of a PTSD vet?
Sure, through the chair. So there's been a lot of research that has proven that peer support is a really essential aspect of veterans who have mental health issues being successful and able to reintegrate successfully into civilian society. And so when we look at peer matches, our staff are doing a very in-depth, almost like a questionnaire. So the veteran would identify what war era they served in, how long they served, what branch, how many times they may have been in the war zone, if there are certain hobbies or interests that they have, what their age is, all those kinds of things. And then we try to find another veteran who will match as closely as possible to that veteran. And the match would be typically somebody who is either, depending on the wishes of the veteran participant, if it's either going to be kind of like a battle buddy scenario where they're kind of on equal footing, or one will be like a mentor and the other will be a mentee. We have obviously learned that the more commonalities you can find, the better the match will be and the longer it will last. But a lot of times veterans who served in, for example, Iraq don't necessarily desire somebody else who served in Iraq. Just any veteran who has wartime experience or combat experience would be acceptable to them. So, and of course we always, introduce the vets to one another, make sure they're comfortable with each other, and go from there. As far as the PTSD component, we don't require that the match be somebody who has experience with PTSD directly, but if that's involved, then there's some additional training for the mentor so that they know what things to be kind of cognizant of, and if anything were to happen with the veteran participant, they would know how to react, hopefully.
One last question through you, Madam Chairwoman. How big a pool of potential peers do you have for veterans that need or want these services?
Through the chair, so part of the challenge of this program is communicating it to the veteran community, but more importantly, communicating it to the vets who are not already engaged with veteran service providers, because of course they would be at less risk for the pitfalls of a veteran who may be feeling isolated. So right now we have 63 veterans who are enrolled and matched in a one-on-one situation. We also have an additional, let me see if I can find my paper here. We also have 5 support groups, which I don't have firm numbers on, but they average about 10 members per group. So does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other
No further questions.
Any other discussion? Being none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? Okay, the item carries. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? Since there's no other matters, the May 24th, 2016 meeting of the Human Services Committee stands adjourned. The next meeting of the Human Services Committee will be held on Tuesday, June 28th, 2016 at 5:30 p.m.